Good.
All right. Well, that was an awesome speech. If you see me in the kids' shoe section at Walmart, you'll know why. All right. So we have a great speech from my boy Tyler coming up about interactivity.
I'm just going to wait for you to sit down there, Devin. I know, I've been the MC, so I know what it's like. You know, my reason for liking games is very different from many people out there. Sure, I'm going to say things like, dang, doesn't that game look pretty? But it goes a lot deeper than that. You see, video games to me is like a big melting pot from several things in our culture, such as visual art, music, storytelling, and the most important ingredient of all for games, gameplay. And since I was a little boy, I've been fascinated with the process of creating games. And after years of research, I think I finally managed to figure it out. Today, I'm going to share with you the process of creating video games. But first, I want to go over a couple things with my AA survey. According to my AA survey, 13 of you wanted me to give this speech about game development. But 13 of you were also not interested in making video games. Apparently, you guys have something about the number 13. So with that in mind, here's what I would encourage you guys to do. Don't just treat this as just a speech about video games. Compare this speech with what your passion is. So that way you could probably walk away from here thinking, that's a unique way to solve problems. I can probably use that someday. If you do that, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this speech. Now, but why should you believe me and what I'm going to say today? Well, I've made 13 video games, hoping to make number 14 this weekend. So while I'm not a master, I definitely know the process. I also interviewed Andrew, who is a hobbyist game designer. And I also interviewed Robin Harbrin, who works at Pixel Games. And the main thing I hope you take away from my speech today is that creating video games is both technically and creatively challenging. Today, I'm going to cover how to design video games, how to develop video games, and how to market those games for release. Let's start with how to design video games. A good question that game designers should ask themselves when creating video games is, what is a game made of? Thankfully, there are 3 major components to every video game. And to help explain those components, I'm going to use the game soccer as an example, even though it's not a video game. Think about the mechanics or rules involved with soccer. You can't pick up the ball. If you kick the ball in the goal, you earn your team a point. Earn more points than the other team by the end of the game, and you win. Now think about the play that emerges from those rules. That is where the players are running around, passing the ball to each other, using strategies to outwit their opponents. That is because of the rules that we got from our game. Aesthetics actually doesn't refer to graphics as we would normally refer to them to. That's just game designers trying to sound more scientific-y or something. Rather, it refers to the emotions or reasons we go to play that game. So for soccer, some of the reasons you could play that game is for the competition or the fellowship in that game. Another good question that game designers should ask themselves when creating video games is that, can the game be made? Do you have enough time, budget, and skills to create the game? Do you have $1 million or $0? 1 to 2 years or 2 days? Is this your first game or your 50th game? One thing that Robin Harbrin stated in his interview, it's very important to choose to make a game that you're actually capable of creating. I know that I don't have the time and resources to make a huge game, so I focus on smaller designs that suit mobile gaming better. Now that I've talked about how to design video games, I want to talk more about how to develop video games. One thing that developers should be doing while creating video games is that they're also creating prototypes. This is to allow them to tackle risk early, so that way you can find so that way you're not spending $1 million on a single problem. You can tackle it while it's cheap. Play testing. Get other people to play your game, so that way you can make sure that your game is up to snuff. It has great quality, and if players really like certain features and all that. Not that big of a surprise is that game designers are also generating content that players are going to interact with. So this is your art assets, sounds, levels, etc. Here you're going to see an example of a developer creating a level. Right now you're just seeing a blank slate. There's practically no content on here, but no matter what, this is where playtesting is going to begin. And as you can see through the process of creating this level, you will see that the developer is slowly adding more content and changing the level as we go on. You can see here that we have a little gazebo going on, and we have more denser fog, and we have a little light added there at the top. The developer is just tweaking the level until it is as high of a quality as possible. Now that I've covered how to develop a video game, I'm going to tell you how to market a video game for release. One thing to keep in mind when creating a video game is that your game is going to be competing against everything. I'm serious. You're going to be competing against books, movies, video games, your family, friends, pictures of cats, pictures of dogs, everything. So you got to figure out how to differentiate yourself from the competition. So that way, you can stand out from all this attention getters out there, okay? So try to think to yourself, what kind of experience do I offer that warrants people the time, let alone the money, on your product? Also, try to spread the word about your game as much as possible. You don't make a game by saying, "Oh, I'm making a video game." You should use stuff like social media, magazines, and websites to get your game out there. And also, try doing this months in advance, so that way you can garner as big of an audience as possible. Try to think of it like this, okay? You are trying to attract a big horde of zombies. The more noise you make over a longer period of time, the more zombies you're going to attract. Now, I don't know why you guys want to attract a bunch of zombies, but the analogy still holds, you know? Well, since you guys pretty much know how to make a video game, it's game over for this speech. The one thing I hope you'll take away from my speech today is that creating video games is both technically and creatively challenging, so don't do it. Today, I covered how to design video games, how to develop games, and how to market those games for release. There's one thing I want you to remember, though, from my speech, is that creating video games is a lot of work. And I'll admit that I've gotten very frustrated while making games, especially when I'm spending an entire day trying to solve a single problem. But the key lesson I've learned from all this is that with difficulty comes growth. And wow, completing a project is just, you learn so much from doing that, about what you're capable of. And I've learned so much about making video games. It has really helped me in college. And after every project, you always think to yourself where you're going to go next. Thank you.
Okay, questions real quick. Please.
Is there more that goes into it if you're trying to get someone up in physical, like with a Wii?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than if you're playing with a remote control?
Yeah, you know, there is a lot. It is very different. You know, whenever you change the control scheme for any game, the gameplay is going to change as a result. Think about like soccer. You know, it's like soccer is a completely different experience than from basketball, even though we're just using a ball. So for like the Wii, you know, it's like you're getting up there and you're interacting, you know?
So the developing side of it, you actually have
Yeah.
to change per machine that you're using.
Yes, you know, platform is very important. I was kind of debating about bringing up like a little tablet here, because think about like a tablet. You have to, your thumbs, what you're using to interact with the game is actually covering your play screen, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, so it does change depending on the platform you're working on. Good question.
What games have you created? Like what type?
Oh, they've mostly been small games. You know, I'm not a pro at all. Yeah, I've just made like a little arcadey like games. You know, one of my favorite ones though was this little artistic experiment called Don't Click, where the players were like in this room and they had like this power to turn objects into like static, you know? So it's like you touch that desk over there and it turned into like a television static screen. Yeah, and it actually got featured on the website and received over 30,000 plays, so.
What software do you use?
I like to use the Unity software, you know? Oh, That's actually a good question. I actually do have a handout prepared for you guys. So if you guys want, just come up, come to me, and I'll hand you that little handout there.
Perfect. Thank you.